Hi guys, so today we're going to go over how to create a monochromatic scale with your color pencils and how we can layer colors to create tints, tones, and shades. So what you need today is a sketchbook or a blank sheet of paper, and you're going to need at least one color plus black and white. So choose a color, whatever color you want. That's on the color wheel, so pink does not count, plus black and white color pencil. And hopefully you guys have those already. You should have received one of those in your kits. So we just covered what a tone is, what a tint is, what a shade is, and kind of the different color schemes. So in your sketchbook, like I said, we're going to be making what we call a monochromatic scale. So go ahead and label your sketchbook with that. And then we're going to basically be copying the sheet that our kids in person are doing, creating different tints, tones, and shades. So we're going to have 3 different sections. And in each section you're going to have 6 boxes. So go ahead and you can even zone it off if you want. I'm going to do that. So I have 3 different sections. And my top one is going to be my tints, and I'm going to draw 6 squares / rectangles. They don't need to be super huge, and they don't all need to be the same size. So I'm making my end ones a little bit bigger, so I know that one is going to be the color and one is going to be either tint, tone, or shade. This middle section is going to be my tone, and my bottom section is going to be my shades. So again, I'm going to go ahead and draw in those rectangles, 6 rectangles in each. They don't need to be perfect, they don't need to be super huge. They don't need to take up the whole entire page either. And then my last section here. Alright, so we're going to start with our tints. So if you recall back in our presentation of going over how to create tints, you probably remember that in order to create a tint, you add white. So just for the sake of you guys being able to see my different shades, I'm going to use red as my other color. So when making a tint, you're going to use white and whatever color you're using. Okay? So this first box here is just going to be your color. We've already made a value scale before, so we know that on one end is just the plain old color, right? If we were using a pencil, it's the color. On the other end is usually the highlight. In this case, it's going to be white. So we're just going to actually leave it white. Okay? To use our color pencils to make a tinted scale, we're actually going to start layering with our white first and gradually adding red on top. Okay? So we're going to start with the white and then go to the color. So I'm going to start with this second square because, like I said, this first one is white. Ideally, you would have to color it in white, but since your paper is white, you don't need to color it in. So I'm going to go ahead and start shading in with my white color pencil first on the bottom. So you can't really tell. It's probably hard. It might look a little yellow. And then I'm going to add just a tiny bit of red on top. And notice that I'm shading in a circular motion because I want this tint to be very, 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 very light. It should be very, very close to white and just a tiny bit of whatever color you are using. So yes, you can see the strokes right now. Hopefully you can see a little bit of red coming in. Should be very, very little. And then I'm going to go back over it with my white once again to kind of blend in those strokes so you can't really see a lot of the pencil marks. It's okay if you see a little bit of it. This is just for practice. And hopefully you should see a little bit of red. Each time I'm going to gradually add a little bit more red to it. So again, I start with my white first, layering it down, covering the whole bottom, filling in the whole square. Now I'm going to press down a little bit more with my red, not too much yet, because we still have 2 more boxes to go. And it should just be a gradual change in getting darker to our color. So these 4 boxes in the center, you're always going to add whatever color, whatever it's a tint, you're going to add white. If it's a tone, you're going to add gray. If it's shade, you're going to add black. So now I'm going to go over this again with my white to blend it in. And if you can't tell the difference between these 2 values, the 2 boxes you just made, hopefully you can see some in mine, then add a little bit more red to it over the white again. Alright, so now I've done that one. I'm going to move on to this next one. Again, putting my white down first, and then adding my red on top of it. So now I'm going to press down a little bit more. Again, notice that I'm shading in a circular motion, so it blends nice and easy. And now I'm going to go over it one more time with white to blend it all together. And I'm really pressing hard with my white pencil so I can really blend it. And our last box here before we get to our color, adding in the white on the bottom and really pressing down harder with my red color pencil or whatever color you're using. I'm really pressing down hard, because you'll notice that without the white underneath, when I get to my plain color, you'll notice that there is a drastic difference without the white underneath. So now I'm going to go to my color here, and I'm not going to shade in my whole box, but you can tell that without that white underneath, how different and how we can now gradually get lighter to white. Okay, and then that last box you should go over back with white again, or you can go back over it with red if it's not dark enough. Okay, so that's how you make a tint. Again, you layer the white. I'm going to write this down. Layer white first, color second, and then you blend with the white back over. Alright, now we're going to actually go on to our shades next. I'm going to bring this down so you can see it, and we'll do tones last. So, shades, again, I'm going to stay with my red. So, our color is always going to be on the left, and if you recall, a shade, to make a shade, you would add black to it. Okay, so you might have thought, oh, we're going to use white, right? Ideally, you're always going to use your lightest color first. So in this case, we're going to use our red color pencil first, and we're going to go from our color to our black. So kind of opposite of what we did with our white, but again, you always want to use your lighter color first, because you can always get a little bit darker. You can't always go lighter. Okay, so starting with our color first, I'm not going to shade this whole thing in, but just so you can see, this is what my red looks like. And now I'm going to go on to my next box, and I'm going to add in my red. I'm going to shade this whole thing in as red. So now our red is going to act as our white, like we did earlier, where it's layered first, and now we're going to gradually add a little bit of black over it. So I'm going to add just a tiny bit of black, very, very little to start, because black will get darker very, very fast. So I added a little bit of black, And now I'm going back over it again with my red to blend it in. So hopefully you can see that shade of red already. Okay, so again, same thing. We're going to shade in our red at the bottom, always starting with our lightest color first. And then we're going to add a little bit more black to this one. Again, be careful not to add too much black too fast, because it'll be really hard to try to get it back lighter. Alright, I'm going to add my red on top to blend them together. Again, I'm pressing down pretty hard with my red pencil so I can blend those colors. Some of you might get a little fancy and maybe want to blend with your fingers. You can try and do that if you want. Some of you guys might have a blending stump, okay, or tortillon, or a piece of tissue paper. If you want to blend it with that, you certainly can. But even just blending with your color pencil is perfectly fine. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of fastly go through this again. Alright, adding a little bit more red down. And if you want to just go ahead and add in the lightest color throughout the 4 squares, so you don't forget, go ahead and do that and go back. So now I'm adding a little bit more black. Still not pressing down super hard with the black because I want to make sure that I still have another darker one here. So here I'm going to press down nice and hard. And then now I'm going back over it with my red to blend it all in. And this last square. So again, hopefully you'll notice a gradual difference in your different shades. And then this last one here should be your black. I'm not going to blend it all the way in, but you should color yours all the way in. Okay, so again, you should notice color, all the different shades to black. They should all be different. None of them should look alike. Alright, our last one that we have is our tones. So if our tints are white, our shades are black, hopefully you remember what our tone is going to be. It is going to be gray. So again, we're going to have our color, and then we're going to have gray. And probably some of you are like, oh, I'll just use my pencil as gray. Or maybe you have a gray color pencil. Well, if you don't and all you have is white and black, that is how I'm going to show you to layer it. So again, you're always going to layer it with the first is going to be your lightest color. Second is going to be your darkest, and then you're going to blend with your lightest color. So we're going to take that same idea and we're going to apply it for our tone. Okay, so in this case with gray, obviously we're going to start with white, and actually I'm going to make a gray tone first, so this is what I'm going to set it as always. Okay, and actually I'm going to have my gray be my bottom, and I can always go back in and blend it with my white on top. Alright, so to make gray, we always use our lightest color first. So I'm going to use my white first, and I'm going to then add a little bit of black on top. So I'm setting the tone, got it, because it's a tone for what my gray is going to be. And then I'm going to go back in and blend it with my white. Alright, so if this is my gray, now I'm going to apply that same gray throughout these 4 squares, and I'm leaving my color one blank again, because I'm just going to add red gradually to it. So I'm going to go ahead and make all my gray right now. And then I will blend with my white on top. In this case, you might be thinking, oh, maybe I should do the red first and then the black on top. And you very well could do that. It's just going to turn out a little bit different. So now I'm going to add my black on top, because we want our black and our white to be the same consistency. We don't want it to be a little bit too dark, because if you add the black on top of the red, you might make it a little bit too dark. If you add the red after we've made our gray, then you have the same consistency. Because again, we want it to be a red tone, not a black with a tint of a little bit of red to it. We want the same kind of gray throughout. So that's why we're layering it with gray first. And I'm still going to blend it with my white before I add my red. So again, this should all be the same consistency of gray. And I know I'm doing mine pretty fast, but you guys should take your time and make all your grays the same. And now I'm going to go back over it with my white, but I'm going to sharpen it first. Blend it in so it should all look the same. Now I'm going to go ahead and add in my red, and I'm going to do the lightest red one first because I can always bring it darker. So I'm going to add just a tiny bit of red on top. So hopefully you can see that little bit of red popped through. And I'm going to go back over it again now with my white. And if you notice that it's a little bit too much of a tint, you can add a little bit of black over it, but I wouldn't add too much. Okay, so hopefully you notice there's a little bit of red in mine. Now I'm going to move on to my next one, applying a little bit more red to it. And I'm going to go back over it again with my white to blend it all in. And continue moving on, applying a little bit more pressure with my red as I go. So this one I'm noticing it's a little bit more of a tint than a tone. So I'm going to add a little bit more black here, but not too much that it becomes a shade. And our last one here, I'm going to add a lot of red, really, really pressing down hard. And going back over again with the white. And a little bit of black. Again, you should really take your time doing this so it's a nice and smooth value scale of your different monotones. Alright, and then last but not least, your color should be red. And again, or whatever color it is, that's what you're going to color in that last one. Alright, so that is how you are going to shade using your color pencils to create a monochromatic scale to make tints, to make a tone, and make a shade. Again, you're always going to layer it first with your lightest color, and then the second is your darkest, and then you're going to go back in and you're going to blend it with your lightest color.